Edgy talk.
Double talk. Fast talk. Talk radio.
The home of free speech.
Kevin O'Sullivan. Full contact, common sense conversation. Plain talking, pioneering.
Kevin O'Sullivan.
Weeknights from 7 on Talk Radio.
More news from the asylum, folks. The Metropolitan Police has referred itself to the police watchdog over its handling of allegations that a party took place in Downing Street last Christmas. I'll tell you what that is. That's because there was that party on December the 18th where there was clear evidence, at least there looked like there was evidence that some kind of festive bash was going on. It was reported to the police and they said they weren't going to investigate because they don't really investigate things from a year ago. Everybody went, well, hang on a second, if the law was broken, why aren't you investigating? Well, now, in response to all of those complaints, the cops have referred themselves to the police watchdog over their handling of the allegations that a party took place. It's just like, what's going on in this country? Absolutely insane. Why don't you not refer yourself to the police watchdog, and why don't you do what you should have done in the first place, which was investigate the damn party? God almighty. Anyway, here we are in the last hour of this rather irascible 3 hours of roller coaster radio. I've been quite annoyed throughout tonight, haven't I? Why not? Who isn't? We are going to have a final 60 minutes of fun. Your calls and texts, of course, at the end of the hour, 0344 499 1000. Or you can text us, right, talking the message to 87222, or you can tweet us at Talk Radio. Also coming up this hour, at the end of this hour, giant millipedes as long as a car, 9 foot long. Millipedes been discovered. Fossils of that have been discovered on a Northumberland beach, actually. So Northumberland's changed. 326 million years ago it dates back from. That's the Carboniferous period, which was 100 years before dinosaurs. 9 foot long millipedes. I'm glad. I mean, you thought it was bad now. I wouldn't want to be around there. Anyway, we'll be talking to an expert to find out about the Carboniferous period. It sounds intriguing. 9 foot millipedes in Northumberland. Who'd have thought it? Also, Picasso. We will be joined by the People's Art critic Estelle Lovett to assess the work of Picasso. That's a pig that does these paintings, and one of them, I must admit, does look very nice. It's just sold for £20,000. So he's got quite a good art career going, and perhaps we'll talk about some other talented artistic animals as well. Before we get to any of that, let's go straight over to talk about the state of the world and the state of education with the lead of Young Voices UK, Jason Reed. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Kevin. I'm afraid I'm still laughing about the Metropolitan Police telling the teacher on themselves for admitting that they don't investigate things that happened in the past.
What is going on? I mean, so people quite rightly said, well, here's clear evidence. It looks as if the law was broken. The COVID laws were broken. There's a party. Oh, no, we're not going to investigate that. Everybody goes, well, you should investigate it. It looks like there's a proper case to be looked at there. No. And now there's been so many complaints, they've referred themselves to the Police Complaints Committee. I mean, you couldn't make it up, could you?
Absolute clowns. They're just making it up as they go along. I mean, the statement was ridiculous in the first place. We heard the same thing in the past when they were asked to investigate Matt Hancock, very much not respecting social distancing rules in his office, and they came up with this same ridiculous line, which it's amazing that it made it past the filters to get to the public twice, that we don't investigate things that happened in the past effectively. It's just a ridiculous position. And now apparently out of shame, they think that we're going to have sympathy with them, that they've now referred themselves to the watchdog. I mean, we just want them to do their jobs. What are they playing at?
Yeah, as I just said, don't refer yourself to the watchdog. Just do what you're supposed to do in the first place. Investigate the damn party. I mean, but then again, to be fair, Jason, they are very, very busy, the police, recording non-crime hate incidents. So they've got a lot on their plate, not investigating crimes.
Yeah, lots of important work to do, isn't there? Cressida Dick finding new reasons not to resign. It takes up not many hours in the day once you got through all that important work.
Indeed. I want to ask you, I want to get on to Staffordshire University and its important degree in pantomimes in just a second. But what's your take as an influential young voice, on Omicron, the state we're in right now. I keep saying, is it just me, or does Omicron not kill anyone and not put anyone in hospital? So why is all the panic going on?
I know exactly what you mean. I feel like I'm being gaslighted. Am I the only one who sees the headlines about it not being as deadly and about us being nowhere near overwhelming the NHS with hospital beds and all this kind of thing, and people not dying from it? Viruses mutate. We know that. That's what they do. And as you would expect, this particular variant is less deadly and possibly more transmissible than some of the ones that have come before. And so that means that it's becoming less harmful. It's finding its way to stick around for a long time, but that comes at a cost of it not being able to kill as many people, which I would have thought would be a good thing. The problem I have is if we're not free now, that means we never get to be free again. Vaccines were supposed to be, and indeed they are, the way we get out of the pandemic. We've had vaccines available for a long time. We've had a very high uptake rate. There is no excuse at all for panicking in this way when new variants come along. But we've slipped into this situation, which we were all well warned about, to be fair, many, many times last year, where lockdowns and restrictions on hospitality and restrictions on socializing are now the go-to knee-jerk reaction for when there are some scary stats about hospital beds and people daring to use the NHS. That means that we now need to crack down on people seeing each other and going outside in order to protect the NHS. The NHS has a crisis every winter. This is nothing new. The last thing we need to be doing is making all of our mental health worse, by the way, by locking down again. And then, of course, we're supposed to be grateful for the fact that Boris Johnson, after a 6-hour cabinet meeting, decided not to have restrictions over Christmas.
Yeah, I'll tell you why, Jason, because all the other cabinet ministers said, if you do that, we'll quit, because the statistics do not back up any justification for locking down. In fact, any justification for any more restrictions. Why do you think it is that in the face of clear evidence, very strong evidence, we don't know completely, but it seems pretty likely that Omicron is a mild variant that won't do you too much harm? Of course, there'll be 1 or 2 cases where it gets serious, but in the vast majority of cases, people will get a bit sick for a couple of days and then they'll be all right. They won't go to hospital. They won't die. Why do you think the government seems so resistant to even discussing that? Why is it so obsessed with trying to suppress the optimistic narrative?
Boris Johnson abandoned his principles a long time ago. Any last shred of libertarianism that he had in him is long, long gone. And he can only, I think the reason, in answer to your question, that he keeps panicking about this is because he can't see beyond the immediate. He can't see beyond tomorrow's newspaper headlines. And so in this case, I'm sure he's absolutely chuffed with himself tonight because he's secured himself some headlines about saving Christmas, that he's flown in, with his bright blue cape to save us all from lockdown at Christmas. And so he's not thought about what about the day after that and the day after that? What about when the scientists are still calling for a new lockdown when it comes to next week and when it comes to January? Will I have to give in at that point? And I think he's put himself in a situation where it looks like he's going to have to give in all these trade-offs he's implementing with other politicians and with Sage. That lockdown seems inevitable. And this looming threat of lockdown isn't going to go away because the virus isn't going away anytime soon. He keeps panicking about it.
Even though it's not killing people. I know it's not great that millions of people are catching Omicron, or hundreds of thousands, whatever it is, but they're not getting that sick. So this is the sort of thing. You don't lock down a country because people are getting colds. It's absurd. Well, I got you on to talk about the state of further education, so we'll get a quick conversation in about it. What we were talking about is probably more interesting, but the University of Staffordshire, I can't say I've ever heard of it, is offering a 1-year master's course called Contemporary Pantomime Practice. So basically you can get a master's degree in pantomimes. What's the point of that?
I really don't know what the point of it is. This problem can be traced all the way back to Tony Blair in 1999 with that infamous pledge that half of 18-year-olds in this country need to go to university. That was not based on any kind of logical basis. It didn't have any grounding in research. It was a figure he plucked from thin air that he thought would sound good in the newspapers. Doesn't that sound a little bit familiar? And we are now suffering the consequences of that over 2 decades later, because we're in a situation where young people feel that they have to go to university. I certainly felt like I had to go to university at the age of 18. There wasn't any other choice. And it means that other more appropriate venues for lots of people, such as apprenticeships, such as other further education schemes, get sidelined. They don't get the funding they need. They don't get the attention and the diversity of different courses on offer that they need and that you would have if you were going to properly exploit all the potential there, because all the attention goes to universities. I mean, this story about a master's in pantomime is just the pinnacle of it. It doesn't get any more ridiculous than that.
Surely they're not doing that. Oh yes, they are. Final question. We don't have much time to discuss it, but UCL, University College London, there is a move to extract courses that teach the stories of, and I quote, dead white men of the past. So that would be sort of people like Adolf Hitler, Winston Churchill, King Henry VIII. I mean, I'm afraid that dead white men of the past are quite important in our history, aren't they?
That's the problem. I've got no doubt that this was well-intentioned, but this is not how you make the world better. History is a horrible place, and the best thing we can do is to learn about it, warts and all, in its unfiltered state, so that we don't make the same mistakes again. We can learn about slavery, for example, so that we don't have slavery again in the future. But you can't just eliminate parts of the curriculum at will because they don't suit what you want. The world is more diverse today than it was historically. That means that in the future, university curricula will be more diverse than they are today, because between now and then, people of color and women of color will do important things like writing books and coming up with new ideas, and students of the future will study them. But today we have to study what's happened in the past. We don't have any other choice about that. And it doesn't serve anyone to pretend that history was a little bit nicer and a little bit less racist and less sexist than it actually was. And it's foolish to pretend that it was, and that we can kind of whitewash history and make it all go away.
I totally agree, Jason. Before you go, I want to thank you for all your contributions, your excellent contributions to the show throughout the year, and to wish you a very happy Christmas.
Thank you, Kevin. Same to you.
That's Jason Reed there, head of Young Voices UK.